Next question.
I feel like I'm on a game show. And the game show is sociology.
Yes, all the best game shows, in my opinion, are sociology. Hi, I'm Jackson Beard, and today I'm joined by my good friend Cody Melcher, who is a podcaster, writer, comedian, Twitcher, YouTuber.
Yeah.
You do lots of things.
I do.
You want to explain better what you do?
I guess the main thing I do now is I run a podcast called Tomfoolery, where I discuss bad, bizarre, and buck wild books with my funny friends. Jackson's been on an episode, and we'll be on a future episode.
Most importantly, he's the dude that's letting me stay in his house for a few days in LA.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm also an innkeeper. Podcaster, writer, innkeeper.
So, actually, I wanted to have you on today because you are a cis gay man who has dated trans men in the past.
Yes.
And trans men, I know from my own experience and from talking with other guys, I mean, dating sucks as a trans person. And as a trans man, it can be super, super intimidating and scary and nerve-wracking. And particularly if you are a trans guy who wants to date other guys. The cis gay male culture is scary to lots of people, and I think trans men have some particular fears around it. So I wanted to talk through some of that with you and really just pick your brain for my own anxieties and get some possible comfort or more fear. So we'll see. My first question for you, in the predominant, I would say, but at least stereotypical cis gay male culture, and especially cis gay white male culture, there is so much emphasis on the body and on the physique, and also the hatred of female assigned at birth body parts and anatomy, and it's just it is a huge mess of things that do not mesh well with trans men's bodies. I think a lot of trans guys can be really scared and intimidated by that. Talk to me about that. Make me feel better.
What a sandbox question. No, I totally get that. When I was a younger dude, I identified as dude at the time. My
current identity.
But definitely when I was younger and I wasn't as well educated, obviously, I definitely had those preconceived notions about the idea of these genitals are gross and these genitals are good. As I progressed through my own personal experience and everything, I don't know, everything just kind of was that doesn't really matter that much. I think part of it for me personally, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but sex is just weird in general.
Yes.
And all genitals are weird.
That was my thought when you were saying the good and bad. I was like, I mean, are we talking about just aesthetically?
No. Yeah, I spent so much of my life being uncomfortable about sex because I have social anxiety and stuff, and there's so much pressure built into it by everyone, and I grew up in Texas and I didn't learn anything.
Yep.
So I think a lot of it's also the sex education in this country, and specifically in certain states, is not good. And if you're not educated on any of that, it's very confusing. I think ultimately what happens is what happens with everything. Ignorance breeds hatred or fear or problems.
And that might be why we often think that it's exacerbated in cis gay communities, because the sex education for heteronormative people is lacking, but there's nothing for queer people.
Right. If you're a cis gay man who only dates other cis gay men, and you grew up in, let's just generalize and say, the South, there is a very good chance that you have never seen even a picture of genitals that do not look like yours.
Right. So that's fearful, because it's the unknown.
You have no concept. You have no idea what that is.
Yes.
And I think a lot of what happens too with cis gay men is because they feel like they're fighting so hard for their identity. I think that's why it's better in younger cultures, because not only are we conversing more with trans cultures, but because younger gay men, by and large, I know that there are still people that are going through things, but they don't have to fight as hard to prove they're gay. And I think there comes this a misogyny aspect, because you have to prove that you love other men so much that it becomes a hatred for women in some aspect.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that gay men, and cis gay men specifically, hate women, but there's definitely an underlying element. And I mean, I've heard that also in trans communities in terms of when you have to shift away from a culture that you've been raised in, sometimes there's a bitterness, or sometimes you have to prove it to people.
Oh yeah, trans guys can be totally misogynist, which is so weird, but does make sense when you lay it out that way.
Because you have to prove to other people and to yourself, especially if you're in that generation or in that area of the country, or just your own family sometimes. And in doing that, you not only have to go, no, I actively like this, you have to go, I also actively hate this.
Right.
I think that's kind of ultimately the bigger underlying issue as well.
So we talked about genitals a lot just now.
Sorry.
Let's. I also want to.
Don't worry, I was the most uncomfortable about it.
But I also want to talk about like body image because
Yeah.
that is a huge thing in
Yeah.
gay communities that cis men and trans men alike feel the pressure of that. But I feel like with trans men, there's just like this added layer of feeling like their body, in addition to maybe not being up to whatever societal standard there is, but also looking too feminine, and that will be unappealing and a turnoff to cis gay men.
Yeah, in cis gay culture, there's that whole issue with everybody needs to be, hot, six-pack, toned. And I mean, like, I experience this all the time. The first thing somebody said to me in Chicago, I went to a gay club. I just moved there. Week I moved to Chicago. I walked in, ordered a drink. Guy walked up to me and said, "You're too fat to be here and you need to leave. You're making everyone uncomfortable." And that was it.
How
that
do you
was my
say
introduction.
that to a person?
And I just got out of college. And I was also like 50 pounds lighter than I am right now. So imagine how I feel at this point in my life, living in LA. I actually used to talk about this in my stand-up a lot. The issue with cis gay culture, and I think this also applies to trans gay dudes as well, is it's the male gaze, but the call is coming from inside the house. You're viewing yourself in the same way that like heteronormative society has trained men to view women. It's also being reflected back at yourself.
So that's all the self-hatred?
So when you're looking in the mirror, you're objectifying yourself.
Wow.
Is what I believe. That's my philosophy. So looking at body image issues in any capacity, you're looking in the mirror and you're going like, well, I don't find me attractive. And of course, we work in entertainment. If you spend a lot of time looking at yourself a lot, you're gonna you know where the flaws are.
That's why the camera stops above my hips.
That's why all of my selfies are here up.
So I think it's always reassuring to hear as a trans person that cis people like feel the same insecurities, even though it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
So you always have to be careful it's not like in a belittling way, which this wasn't at all. But so from what you've been saying just now and like from past conversations we've had, I know that one reason that dating trans guys is no big deal at all to you is because you have felt some of these same like insecurities and like tension with the cis gay male community. Yeah. It's great like for any trans guys who also, feel more part of like queer culture that's more diverse and inclusive, but what about like trans guys who want to be a part of the more mainstream gay community? Do you think there's any hope for them outside of being like fetishized or like just stuck always being friends with benefits?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I have trans friends that are way more accepted by the general cis gay community than I am, because they like Drag Race and they, and they love Mean Girls and like, because it's a personality thing in that capacity. Like I said, there are ignorant people everywhere, but there are people that aren't ignorant everywhere, and gay culture. I mean, I could write a whole thesis on gay culture, so that I don't want to get too long here. But the reason why the LGBTQ plus community exists, the reason why we've all grouped together, even though we don't all really share the exact same thing, is because we share one thing in common, which is that we're all born outside of a community. Yeah. There are rare exceptions, but very few like trans kids are born into trans neighborhoods or gay kids are born into gay neighborhoods. It doesn't happen. So that's the
Are there trans neighborhoods and where can I move in? Because that sounds great.
I'm sure New York's got some.
I mean, I'm very steadily turning my neighborhood into the trans neighborhood.
That's what you do.
Convincing all my friends to move in.
But that's what queer culture is building your own community. Like that's the one thing that we lack, against like, other minorities is that they usually have their elders, like especially with cis gay men, our elders were wiped out in a plague that the government ignored. But ultimately what gay culture has become is kind of a reflection of gay creators that managed to work through Hollywood, putting its own culture out and then reflecting it back at itself. So it's always just kind of a conversation with itself. That's why, like, if you like most gay culture is kind of referential. Right. It's always kind of quoting things and things like that. That's because we don't really have inborn gay culture. So
I talk all the time about the need for better trans representation, but what I'm hearing right now is that the real need for better trans representation is so I can get me a boyfriend.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Next question. So the first time that you, like, met a trans guy that you dated or whatever, like, did you really know that trans guys existed? Do you know they existed in the gay space? Like, had you really known that dating a trans guy was a possibility?
The first trans dude that I, like, met, I think, like, in person, was a dude at a club. We started dancing with each other towards the end of the night. And then he was like, hey, do you want to like go get like food at a food truck? And I was like, sure. And he's like, by the way, I'm trans. And I was like, cool, what food are we getting? Because I knew what he meant.
A+.
Well, I had been educated enough on that point in most capacities to know, like, don't make a big deal out of it. Not to be like, oh my god, that's amazing, you know, or something like, because it was also just like, all right, cool, that's an aspect of, you know, like, all right, cool, I don't like lobsters, you know, like.
So let's not get shellfish.
Yeah, so like that, because that was very important, there was a lobster truck. So then my first boyfriend I met on,
First boyfriend who was trans, not your first boyfriend
yes,
ever.
sorry, my first trans boyfriend, which is a great young adult novel. But,
oh man!
He was stealth on OkCupid, and then he told me, and I was like, cool, we started dating, and that was a good relationship. And then he introduced me actually to my next trans boyfriend, which is the sequel to the first young adult novel, because they were friends, and he was like, hey, this is not working, but I think you would like my friend a lot. I think you guys would get along. And he was right. That was my longest relationship ever. And they were kind of spread apart. There were some people in between.
So a big thing that like trans people get really caught up with is when to disclose in dating. Like, do you put it in your profile? Do you, tell someone like 3 dates in if it's like a slower burn type of relationship? And not to say like, hey, cis person, tell us how to do it. But I'm just curious about a little bit of input, since it is something that we like get so nervous over, and we all kind of have different opinions on.
I mean, obviously,
and also you are just one person.
I was literally about to say that. I'm of the opinion that you do it when you're comfortable. Mm-hmm. I've never felt like hoodwinked,
right, by
any sort of disclosure. And I've dated plenty of people who have had to disclose something at some point, serious and not serious. To me, it's very similar, in the grandest sense and most general sense of similar to like having a kid or things like that, where it's like, yeah, that's important. It's important to you, and it's important in this relationship dynamic. I mean, I dated a dude one time who never disclosed it. Just wrote it as like, why would I disclose this?
That's cool.
Yeah, and I never said anything. It never came up, and we just dated. We went on a couple of dates. It was fun, and it just didn't work out. But I was never like, when's he gonna say something about this?
Right.
There are different people out there that are gonna react differently in different ways, but they're gonna do that regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone who is acting entitled to that information, or feeling like, oh, you tricked me, like, they're just probably not good people. Yeah. They have some transphobia because they probably have other phobias and not great things about them.
You're not entitled to anything from another person that you've just met other than like basic human respect.
Oh, that's a good quote.
Yeah. If you create a relationship with a person, then obviously that starts creating different dynamics and things that you expectations. But, if I just met you online, if I'm going on a date with you, you owe me nothing other than showing up on time.
Wow. Okay. Well then.
and that is negotiable. That again, because the basic human respect goes the other way. I can be understanding if the train's running late, or if you're just bad with time.
I'm just bad with time.
Yeah, I know.
So we've kind of mentioned this here and there, but again, you are just one cis gay man. Like, have you talked about this with other cis gay men? Like, do you have an idea of how special unicorn you are compared to other cis gay men and their reactions to trans gay men?
I'm gonna be real honest with you. I don't talk to a lot of cis gay men. I don't talk to a lot of queer people in general. I don't talk to a lot of people. I don't talk to a lot of people in general. I mean, I've had conversations with cis gay men that I've either dated or been friends with. They've gone either way. Mm-hmm. I have some friends that are like, that are probably, I would say, pretty much the same mindset that I have, that it's just, the tapestry of the world. But I've also definitely, I was hitting on a dude at a bar one time, and we were having a really good time. It was going really, really well. And then he got super transphobic out of nowhere, and I did my best to educate him as best I could. And then when I hit a brick wall, I was like, well, this sucks, and I don't like you, and you're a bad person. Goodbye. And I got up and I walked to a different part of the bar.
Nice.
And that's the other thing, is that, we talk about this a lot with minority cultures. It is beholden on all people to educate other people when they are bad actors. The bad thing to do in that situation is when that person says something, for you to either let them continue saying it, ignore it because it doesn't directly affect you, or just leave it alone.
Yeah.
I am indirectly affected by what he says, and directly because friends and family I care about. I gave him the information. I made it clear to him how it affects people and how it interacts with his life. And when I got as far as I could, I made it clear that that was not okay, and I wasn't going to allow him to be a part of any part of my circle.
Yeah, and that's such a great ally moment. Like, that's what people who have the privilege and can do that with safety need to do. Is like, do your best to educate, and then don't be a part of it.
And I do that not to toot my own horn, but to inform and put forward how you should interact in those situations.
Man, I wonder why we're friends. Why I feel comfortable staying at your house.
Because we're kind and caring people. Just, I don't know, care about other people and stop being garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of it.
I feel like the theme, like the moral of every video on my
Yeah.
channel, like this one, is education and representation are so important.
Yeah.
And just like listen to people and treat them like freaking humans,
Right.
man.
Just be kind.
Okay, that is it for today. We've got to run out to go to a private magicians club.
Yep.
That's what
Private
we're
club
doing
for
today.
magicians.
I'm so excited. If you want to see more of those weird adventures that I get up to in my life, make sure you follow me on Jack is Not a Bird on Instagram, especially. But also make sure you follow Cody.
I'm at Cody Melcher ESQ on all social media but one. You can also find me at CodyMelcher.com, Twitch.com/Cody Melcher ESQ, or Twitch.tv/Cody Melcher ESQ.
And we also shot a video on Cody's channel, so you can go over there and watch that video. Make sure to like and comment and subscribe and all of those things. And also, Cody has an amazing podcast that we mentioned earlier. It's called Tomfoolery. You can look it up on Apple Podcasts and everywhere where you get podcasts. I will be on another episode coming up later this summer, so watch out for that. Is that everything? We both do too many things.
Yep. Yeah, just go to my website. It's usually a good hub.
Cody, thank you so much for having... Oh, yes,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It was
thank
a
you
real
for your
pleasure.
thoughts.
Yeah,
and thank you to all of you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Was that good?
Yeah, that was
Do you feel
great.
good about it?
I feel good.
Okay.